Oh, we are now recording. So thank you, Aaron, for coming on the pod. So we're calling this the 5-Star Dispatch, playing on the Army theme and the 5-star recruits. So thanks, Aaron, for joining me. If you kind of want to take some time to kind of explain who you are and how you love college football and kind of talk to everyone.
Sure. So my name is Aaron Friedman. I'm a coach at DFS Army for college football. Um, I have followed college football for a while. I have Northwestern season tickets, so that's the team I'm partial to. But I, ever since I went away to college and had cable for the first time, I've gotten into following all the teams, Pac-12 After Dark to MAC the MAC middle of the week games. So I don't know.
Mac,
It's just a great sport, and I love that every game matters. Like in the NFL, you could lose 5 games and still win the Super Bowl, but like this first game, even if Florida loses, it completely at best they'll probably go 11-2, which would, in all honesty, that would be a good year, but it's not going to get them close to the playoffs.
right. As we've learned, losing 2 games is a death sentence, which is funny given that teams kind of want to get away from scheduling FCS opponents and kind of having these strong non-conference games, and then uh, the playoff committee comes together and goes, "Nope, 2 losses. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what the stats say. Uh, you're pretty much done." So, yeah, I agree. So, did you go to all the games at Bradley? Do they have a football team there?
No, they don't have a team, so Northwestern's kind of been my default team
Hmm. Hmm.
forever.
Yeah, I mean, and they've come around and Fitz has restarted the program and kind of rejuvenated it. So it's nice to see. Nice to be able to go up to Evanston for a few games.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess a little bit about me. So I am also a coach at DFS Army. My name is Ryan Besh. Fight on 2016. I went to undergrad at USC, obviously from the name. Always been in love with college football. I think the atmosphere of college football uh, beats out anything in the world. Um, just being able to go to a game and kind of have young people around you be able to tailgate, and truly nothing else beats it. And like you said, every game matters. The first game we're about to talk about is crazy, and I have no idea who's going to win it, and that's the beauty of the game. And so, yep. So I guess that kind of explains who we are, and so let's kind of jump in. So the first game on the docket is Miami playing Florida on a neutral field, and we have currently the line opened at Florida -7.5. It's pretty much stuck around there. We have some at -7, some books -7. The total, clearly Vegas is expecting a slugfest. Line open at 15.5 and has bet down pretty heavily. It's now sitting at 47 and touched 46.5 on one book. So, Aaron, give me kind of your breakdown of the game from a DFS, from a betting standpoint, and kind of where you're headed.
So I was just looking at Phil Steele at the moment, and so the game's in Orlando, but it's a lot closer to Florida,
Hmm.
and Miami doesn't have the hugest fan base being a private school, but I was just looking at their attendance, and they average about 61,000 fans, which is more than I would have thought. But uh, I guess that's a little off topic, but there will be a lot of Florida fans given the proximity from Gainesville to Orlando.
Hmm.
And so Florida has Felipe Franks back for I think it's his third year now of being the starting quarterback. He's been kind of much maligned for a lot of his career, and this is the second year under Dan Mullen, so I think people are pretty optimistic about him going in. Um, they don't have a ton of skill player talent. They're okay. I think that's kind of what contributed to the low game total. But I don't know. To be honest, if I had to pick one team to fall out of the top 10, it would be Florida. I think they should win this by at least 10, but I don't know. It's a grind of a schedule as always in the SEC, and we'll see what happens, but I do think they can win this game by 10 points.
Yeah, that pretty much makes sense. I think that this is a very interesting game in that both offenses have four offensive linemen that they have to replace, and both defenses are extremely stacked. Miami has Quarterman and Pinckney at the linebacker position, and they are just absolute studs.
Yeah.
Manny Diaz obviously coming over as head coach, and he hired the Louisiana Tech defensive coordinator. And so last year, Miami ranked, let me find it. It was, in terms of sack rate, they ranked 4th in the nation. And in terms of tackles for loss, they ranked 13th. They had the highest havoc rate in the nation. They had the highest standard down sack rate, and they had the highest third down. They've limited their opponents to the worst third down rate. So obviously that defensive line is just absolutely stacked, and they want to tee off and kind of attack the quarterback. And I think that Florida returning only one starter, and they've had to replace, I think the stat was crazy, it was 141 starts in the offensive line, is going to be a big factor. And I think, personally, where they're going to have to get a lot of talent is the fact that Miami's secondary is mostly lost. They return only one starter, Trajan Bandy, who is a 5'9", 180 soaking wet cornerback. And he's the only cornerback that is coming back. And when you look at Florida's wide receivers, they're absolutely massive. So you have Florida. So you have Van Jefferson, who is 6'2", 200.
Yeah.
You have Josh Hammond, 6'1", 200, and then Trevin Grimes at 6'5", 220. And so I think that they'll be kind of big for Miami, and they'll be able to make some plays in the secondary. And I think that's kind of the DFS angle I would take on the game is attacking those kind of bigger guys. So I think Van will go against Bandy, and I think that's kind of one of the places that I would attack.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny just looking at the Miami page and who's coming back. You think of Miami, you think of the running backs, the defensive backs, but they don't have those NFL guys that they used to have back in their heyday. I don't know. I feel like that's going to need to be addressed before they're taken seriously as a top 10 team again.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of kind of from a DFS perspective? My mind is kind of boggled by the running back situation for Miami. DJ Dallas had one game over 10 carries last year, and by the bowl game, he got like 4 carries. So kind of, are you worried about that from a DFS perspective, or do you think they're just going to feed him now that who's gone?
Travis Homer, right?
Travis Homer. Now that Travis Homer's gone.
Yeah, no, I'm concerned about Dallas somewhat. In the Phil Steele preview, Cameron Harris is actually the Phil Steele's number 1 running back, and he's very cheap on both sites. So I'm kind of interested in seeing what he does. I think in general on this slate, I would tell people that it's definitely not a cash slate.
Mhm.
There's a ton of variance on the first week just because the algorithms haven't caught up to anyone. So that would be my overarching thing I'd make sure to emphasize is that I don't think it's a cash slate. I do think there could be a lot of 3 or 4K guys on DraftKings who go nuts. Just it's hard to figure out who goes nuts, like how early some of these freshmen or new players get acclimated. Um, I don't love the running backs on the starting running backs. I don't like on either of these two teams.
Mhm.
P. Ryan, the presumed starter for Florida, he even said that he's okay with the timeshare.
Mm.
So I don't know. Like for this slate, I think he'd be okay. He's okay. I mean, I'm gonna be underweight on him.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I'm more interested in the passing game, even with the low total. I don't know. I'm just not loving the running backs for either of these two teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think P Ryan running behind one returning starter on the offensive line. I don't think there's going to be many holes for him, and that expert knowledge that we have for DFS Army subscribers, that he's okay with the time period. You'd hate to see that. That's something not that you want to. So, uh, in terms of passing game, how much are you kind of looking at quarterbacks in this game? We have Felipe Franks, who is a dual threat quarterback, but he has kind of a low completion percentage and he's kind of all over, throw some picks. And then Jaron Williams, who is kind of this dual threat 4-star kid, but we haven't seen much of him. So
Yeah.
who are you going more after, and kind of why, and what kind of wide receivers are you targeting?
I do like Franks a little more because of the receiver size that we talked about. Uh, I will have a little Williams just given the only 4 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about Williams is his quarterback coach, Dan Enos, who is the new OC for Miami, brought over from Alabama. Enos has a long track record of getting good results out of quarterbacks, obviously Tua, but before that, he had a few 3,000-yard passers at Arkansas. Cooper Rush back at Central Michigan when he was the coach there. He's still in the NFL as a backup. So I'm really interested to see what that impact is with Enos's coaching. Um, I'm not super excited about Williams, but I think you have to consider him with the 4 quarterbacks, and he'll definitely be viable if you're playing the showdown slate as well. From the receiver angle, I would say Van Jefferson's probably my favorite guy, and Trayvon Grimes is interesting too. He's kind of the big vertical threat guy on the team, and then I'd say the second biggest vertical threat guy would be Jefferson. So those are the two receivers I'm looking at for Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think I would add for Florida, Josh Hammond, because
Yeah.
I
Oh
saw
yeah.
I saw an article saying that he is kind of the go-to safety option for Felipe, um, and so I don't know if you'll get the massive ceiling out of him, but you might get 10 targets,
Yeah.
6 catches, 40 yards, and if you're playing on DraftKings, that'll be enough uh, at his current price of 3.8K. Um, in terms of Miami, I think what's interesting is, so they just got KJ Osborne from Buffalo coming transferring over, and they have um,
Jeff Thomas, who's he almost went to Illinois, but
Oh,
then
really?
went back to Miami. He was on the in the transfer portal,
Hmm.
and then he ended up. I don't know if it was a behavior thing, but he was kind of in limbo on Miami, and then he came back to Miami. But he's the probably the big play guy, even though Osborne had a ton of targets. He had over 100 targets last year compared to 59 or so for Thomas last year.
Hmm.
I'm most interested of any of the wide receivers in this game to see what Osborne does. It's the biggest game he'll have ever played in. He's a grad transfer in from Buffalo, so it's a big step up from the MAC to this massive nationally televised game. So just interested to see what he does. It's obviously a huge game for his career.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that I saw from both of Thomas and Osborne was that they're very similar. They both have catch rates at about 50%. Really struggle efficiency wise, but they're really explosive athletes. And so that's why I see a lot of kind of predictions, and I see people kind of betting the over, or kind of that's the quant way, because I see that I see Florida kind of not going after the run game. I don't see that being established. I see them kind of going through the air. And Miami, even though Florida has two of the best cornerbacks in the country, I don't really see them kind of being efficient. I see them having explosive plays, and you get a few of those, and you start racking up points really quickly. And that's why I think that this is a strong GPP slate, and we could possibly see,
Yeah.
nights being ruined because there's some guy who goes 6 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns because they caught 2 long bombs.
And that's one of the good things about DFS Army, if I could give a quick plug, is we have our domination station now running with college football. So, especially on a GPP slate like this, you can have our domination station do the work and help you build some of those GPP lineups with our tools.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Domination Station has saved my life and has made me. Uh, it made me 50 grand in basketball when I knew nothing about NBA.
Oh,
So
wow. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it's awesome, and I credit it all the way. It's an amazing system, and it definitely just spits out winners sometimes. And so ending this game, who's your kind of your favorite kind of the highest ownership person you're going in this game?
That's a good question. A lot on I've been trying to use one of the cheaper, like I think on DraftKings, we'll talk about the next game, but
Hmm.
I'll save like the flex or something to get a guy. Maybe one of the cheap receivers. I don't know. I just don't. I want as much of the next game as possible, which I think a lot of people will.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And I put you on the spot there. Yeah, I think for me, I wanted initially for this to get a running back out of this game because I don't think Hawaii is going to run the ball at all in the next game. But I think that's where kind of Cameron Johnson, you can kind of get your edge there to load up on wide receivers in the next game as well as
Yeah.
both quarterbacks. And so yes, let's kind of not beat around the bush. Let's kind of go into talking about this Hawaii Arizona game. So are you stacking both quarterbacks in this game? Are you stacking both offenses? Where's your head at in terms of kind of at the quarterback position?
Yeah, for me, I'm all in on Cole McDonald, and I'll be mostly on Tate, and then probably a few lineups without Tate in case. There are a few scenarios I think where Franks could outplay Tate. I think there's still a bunch of question marks. Tate has a huge floor, but he was hurt all of last year, so which Tate are we going to get? How much running are they going to do? And then Arizona's receiving core was absolutely decimated with graduation. They lost their top 4 receivers, and Peterson was like the fifth, had the 5th most catches last year, and he's the only holdover basically from the receiving core. So the combination of which Khalil Tate will get and the receivers, to me, he's definitely the second best quarterback behind McDonald.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think I put a 20-minute video kind of going over this game in terms of betting. That's kind of what I talked about a lot is Khalil Tate is, if he goes back to his 2017 ways of running the ball just as many times as he passes, he's going to be the top scoring quarterback on this slate. But if he does what he did last year and wants to throw the ball in the pocket, I think he is going to have a problem with one kind of wide receivers that he doesn't really know and doesn't have game time with, as well as kind of Hawaii, while they suck on defense. They do return 9 starters, and they did do a decent job at getting to the quarterback last year. And if he's just going to sit in the pocket and throw to guys he doesn't know, it could be big trouble for him.
Yeah, Hawaii is a good team. I mean, 9 starters back on offense and defense. I like Rolovich there. He was also a quarterback for Hawaii, so he knows the culture. I like when like also Northwestern, I like when the head coach is from the program. I think they sort of know the lay of the land, but he's done a good job there, and they've gone back to the run and shoot offense that Colt Brennan used to run so well. That was my guy that I loved to watch when I first got into college football. And yeah, they have a great passing game, and I think DFS players will definitely want to use as much of that as possible.
So is J.J. Taylor a lock for you? Or how high is your exposure on J.J. Taylor going to be?
Yeah, to me, it's really hard to make lineups without him. I don't know. He's definitely the most stable piece of that offense. There was an article on The Athletic ranking the most stable position groups, and running back was number 1 in large part because of J.J. Taylor, and I think quarterback was 3rd on the position group list, and receiver was last. But yeah, Taylor's a stud in his own right. He had like 1,400 yards last season. I don't know. I wrote this in my notes on DFS Army, but I just don't see a lot of scenarios where he's not in the optimal lineup.
Right. He would have to get injured.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is the only way, because he's going to see 20 carries. That the Hawaii defensive line is not good. They do see some continuity, but it's still not great. And so I agree. I think that you should probably play Taylor in all of your lineups, except maybe one if you're making more than 10, and just try to keep a hedge lineup.
Yeah.
So on the other side of the ball, are you playing any of the Hawaii running backs, Furuta or Holly?
No, I didn't like seeing the depth chart. There were, I think it was 3 co-starters listed, and I'm more interested in even some of the backups on other teams than dealing with a timeshare and all those receiver weapons. You're just so low on the totem pole as the Hawaii running back. So I haven't put in any of my builds. I haven't used any of the Hawaii running backs.
Yeah, neither have I. I don't see them running the ball very much. I think Arizona has, if anything on defense, they have a solid linebacking group, and that probably will likely stop the run more than they will stop the pass. So I guess going to the next group, so the wide receivers. So I think Arizona is a big question mark. We have Cedric Peterson, who is the only returning guy who had 36 targets for 18 catches on those targets, so 50% catch rate. That's not great. He was fairly explosive, but he's still kind of up in the air. Kind of what's your thought on the Arizona group?
Yeah, I think a lot of GPP interest on DraftKings. Jamari Joyner is a very strong play. He is an ex-quarterback that volunteered to move to receiver. Excuse me. It's funny on FanDuel he's listed as a quarterback. He's minimum price, but he's listed as a quarterback, so he's basically unplayable on FanDuel, but he's a pretty strong play on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's at 3,100. So
yeah. Who else? I also like Booby Curry's kind of. He could be the X factor on the slate. He was Arizona's top recruit coming into this year. He's a true freshman, and he has one of those or designations that are so common in college football. He's listed as a co-starter going into this week. I think he's 4,000 on DraftKings and like 5,100 on FanDuel. So I'm excited to watch him in his first college game. Seems like they're gonna give him all the opportunity. They're not gonna baby him.
yeah, for sure. I think from seeing St. Brown from USC play, I think having these highly touted recruits, and he turned down like Auburn and Penn State to go to Arizona. Clearly, there's something about Arizona that he loves, and I agree. I think he's kind of a dark horse factor. I could totally see him going off. I think the one play I think a lot of people are going to go to Cedric Peterson, given that he has some experience in the offense. I think I'll likely be underweight that, just given the fact that he had a horrible catch rate last year. It doesn't seem that he's actually that good. It seemed like he was more kind of just pushed to the side, and he was kind of the fourth option on a team. And you don't really want to see that.
Yeah.
So let's jump over to the fun side of the ball. So Hawaii, I think last year, McDonald threw an average of 37 times every game. I could totally see him throwing 50 or more in this game. So where do you think those targets are going to land?
Well, the top play is Cedric Byrd the second. He was John Ursua was the top target. They've gone to their slot receiver back since the early run and shoot days, and that was John Ursua last year. And now Cedric Byrd, who himself, he had 118 targets for 79 catches, 970 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Byrd takes Ursua's spot, so he's going to be extremely popular, and for good reason. He's the top guy, but you also can't forget about JoJo Ward, the top outside receiver, who had 100 targets himself. So there's plenty of targets to go around here. Don't be scared about having more than one Hawaii receiver in your builds.
Yeah, I think what we saw last year with Ursua had 150 targets, Bird at 110, Ward at 100, and they had another senior who had 90. I mean, tons of targets to go around, and clearly running kind of the run and shoot, running a spread offense. McDonald coming in for the second straight year, which is massive. Hawaii is a transfer city, and they basically being able to keep a lot of their starters, they, having an offense come back that they don't have to reteach is going to be a big thing. I think McDonald makes a big leap, and the wide receiving corps are going to benefit from that strongly. So I saw on the depth chart, I saw that Noah, my guy in my video, went down with an injury, and Jared Smart is taking his place. Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, he's I like him a lot, especially on DraftKings where he's minimum price. But I don't know a ton about him, but he did get the starting spot. I wonder how much he's going to be used. But I mean, if you're starting in that offense for near minimum on both sites, I think it's well warranted to play him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think if you don't go cheap at running back and you need somewhere to go cheap to still have exposure, I think he's probably going to play a lot of the time. He's probably going to get most of the offensive snaps, and you can't cover everyone if you're Arizona, and there's going to be a linebacker on someone, and that person's going to get the ball a lot, whether that's the slot with Bird or whether they kind of branch out a linebacker out wide. I don't see them playing 6 cornerbacks and safeties or 7 cornerbacks and safeties. So there's going to be something open. I think he's going to get targets just because he's there. And I think at 3K on DraftKings, you really can't pass that up.
Yeah. What's interesting on FanDuel is Smart and Curry are $100 apart. So I don't know. FanDuel makes you think a little bit this week. The pricing's pretty tight, especially in the showdown slates. But yeah, it's honestly it's not a bad 2-game slate. We've had worse 2-game slates before, so and getting to see a top 10 team on their own stage is pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so from a betting perspective, the line opened at Arizona minus 11.5 as they're traveling to Hawaii, with the total open at 70, and it's currently sitting at 74. Do you have any play for this game, or do you have any kind of opinion on the line and kind of what you think it should go?
Yeah, I don't know. 74 just seems like such a... I feel better about under 70. I like Hawaii. I think they could definitely cover, but 74 just seems so high for a first game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that would probably, under 74 would probably be my favorite play. I mean, I don't know. Usually teams are trying to figure it out the first game, but...
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my model has it currently at 68, which is still a super high total. I mean, they're going to see a lot of points in this game, but 74 is ridiculous. You get 1 or 2 stops, and that's the under by itself.
I think the Houston, Oklahoma one's in the 80s or something.
81, I think it is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Although I actually believe that with how Oklahoma plays. Oklahoma just is fast, and their quarterback actually likes to run the ball and isn't afraid of getting hit. Whereas in this game, we're not sure if that quarterback is afraid of getting hit or not. Awesome. So kind of going over kind of a wrap-up of the slate. So what is your top stud play at quarterback, at running back, and at wide receiver?
Quarterback, it's not going to be a big surprise, but it's Cole McDonald. He is definitely the one I feel the most confident about. I'm very interested to see Tate, but I don't know if I can fully trust him yet. I want to see how he gels with the new receivers, see his mobility. At running back, I think, as we talked about, J.J. Taylor, he's a core play. It's going to be hard unless he gets hurt and you have a hedge lineup. I think you need to strongly consider pressing the lock button with him. And then to pair with McDonald, I like Bird a lot. He's probably my favorite play. And as far as a cheap receiver, definitely keep an eye out on Booby Curry. And I also have Drew Dixon a lot on FanDuel. He's minimum price over there. He's kind of like the Jared Smart of FanDuel, if you will.
Yeah, he's in the orb battle with Jalen Curry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both pretty big receivers too. I mean, that is definitely a place where he could get a long ball, and I think anyone in those offenses could get a long ball and just break the slate. So getting a guy min priced on either of these offenses is a great place to go. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't disagree with you in terms of quarterback. I think Cole McDonald is the absolute stud of the slate. I think he throws the ball 50 times, and he's the best overall passer. And he runs the ball sometimes, and I don't think anyone's going to beat his score this weekend. Running back, I wish I could disagree, but J.J. Taylor, 20 guaranteed rushing is. I mean, you're going to see probably 100 yards. It's just a 100-yard back, and he'll likely get a score or two. And I will definitely be hitting the lock button myself. In terms of wide receivers, you definitely did help change my mind on Bird. I think being in the slot, being in the run and shoot offense, the slot is definitely one of the preferred wide receiving spots. Personally, though, I am going JoJo Ward in that game. I think when you look at wide receivers, John Ursua and JoJo Ward look like identical types of receivers. And we had a guy in Slack talk about how John Ursua ran the go route and was extremely effective in that. And I think that a lot of those targets are going to go to JoJo Ward, and being kind of the second cheapest option, second most expensive from that team, I think he is kind of where I would go as my favorite wide receiver. In terms of cheap wide receivers, I think I go back to Hammond for Florida.
Yeah.
I think he is going to be a PPR machine, as I just don't think that Florida is going to be able to run the ball at all. And I think that offensive line, being as bad as it probably will be the first game, they're going to need to throw one-step, two-step drops and quickly throw this to the guy in the slot. And I think you'll see Hammond with about 12 targets in this game and 8 catches, 40 yards. And at his price, I'm not sure what his price on FanDuel is, but his price on DraftKings, I think that is a great place and a great place to put your money.
Yeah, he's a little Hammond's a little priced up on FanDuel. He's 7,400.
Oh wow.
He's actually more expensive than KJ Osborne.
Wow.
But that's one of the things I've liked about the college football products on both the sites, is that you can get exposure to different guys, and you're not, if Hammond goes nuts and you're playing both and you have him on DraftKings, you're still kind of locked into a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that about the products we have in DFS, is that you can roster different guys on the two sites.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I played more FanDuel. I'm in that weird boat where I've been successful on DraftKings.
Yeah.
I was never successful on FanDuel, and so I just feel like I'm just more cursed on FanDuel, so I just don't go over there. I think it's the blue and white scheme. Reminds me of UCLA, and I can't do it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Aaron, for coming on. This is the inaugural 5-Star Dispatch podcast, and I hope that we can do this every week.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Have a good night.
You too.